Hello everyone, welcome to SJ's classes. I get a lot of requests to do video lessons on certain topics which you deem necessary for your academics. As you're aware of, I work as an assistant professor at a college which is affiliated to the University of Kerala, and I follow a syllabus to do the video lessons I post on YouTube. Once I am done with that particular syllabus, I'll definitely consider all of your requests and make sure that I post video lessons on the topics you have requested. Today it's a Chilean poet that I am about to discuss. His name is Pablo Neruda. I'm sure you have come across this name earlier. But anyhow, let me give you an introduction to this poet. Pablo Neruda, who was originally named Neftali Ricardo Reyes Bosalto, was a Chilean poet, diplomat, and politician. He is considered to be the most important Latin American poet of the 20th century. He began to write poetry at age 10. His father tried to discourage him from writing and never cared for his poems, which was probably why the young poet began to publish under the pseudonym Pablo Neruda, which he adopted in memory of the Czechoslovak poet Jan Neruda. He wrote nearly 3,500 poems in a wide range of genres like historical, epics, passionate love poems, distinctive odes, political manifestos, surrealist poems, and also a prose autobiography. His first book of poems, it was titled Crepusculario, which means twilight, was published in 1923. His second book, 20 Love Poems and a Song of Despair, which came out in 1924, was inspired by an unhappy love affair. It became an instant success and is still one of Neruda's most popular books. Let me also point out some of his other memorable works. They are Tonight I Can Write the Saddest Lines, which is the poem that I am about to discuss today. Don't Be Far Off, When I Die, Die Slowly, and Here I Love You. He has won numerous prestigious awards, including the International Peace Prize in 1950, the Lenin Peace Prize, and the Stalin Peace Prize in 1953, and also the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1971. Neruda was hospitalized with cancer in September 1973 but returned home after a few days when he suspected a doctor of injecting him with an unknown substance for the purpose of murdering him. He died in his house on 23rd September 1973, just hours after leaving the hospital. Though his death was officially attributed to prostate cancer, there have been allegations that the poet was poisoned, as he died right after the rise of dictator Augusto Pinochet to power. Neruda, he was a supporter of Pinochet's deposed predecessor Salvador Allende, who was a Chilean physician and socialist politician who served as the 20th president of Chile from 3rd November 1970. So, a little bit of controversy regarding his death. Now, coming to the poem that we are about to learn today, it's titled Tonight I Can Write the Saddest Lines. It was published in 1924 in a collection of poems written in Spanish. The collection was translated into English in 1969 by W. S. Merwin as 20 Love Poems and a Song of Despair. This poem, which is titled Tonight I Can Write the Saddest Lines, is the penultimate poem in the poetic sequence, and it expresses the pain the speaker feels after losing his lover. Throughout the poem, the speaker recalls the details of his love that is now broken. He continually juxtaposes the past with his lady love with the loneliness he experiences in the present. So you find this happening frequently in the poem, a switching between past and present. The poem is written in the style of monologue with the repetition of the line, Tonight I can write the saddest lines, three times to emphasize his sorrow. In this poem, the speaker describes how easy it is for him to write the saddest lines or poems of all, as he is in a state of mind that allows him to write very tough lines. He also cites different examples, and throughout the poem, you find themes of love, lost love, solitude, etc. You also find that Neruda employs vivid nature imagery to express the loss of his love in this poem, which he states towards the end that will probably be the last poem that he writes about the woman he once loved and lost. So that is an introduction to the poem. Now let's read the poem. Tonight I can write the saddest lines. So the very first line establishes the tone as well as the overall mood of the poem. He says, the poet, the speaker says, tonight I can write the saddest lines. The poet is in a predicament and he believes that his present state would definitely enable him to write the saddest lines. He continues, write, for example, the night is shattered and the blue stars shiver in the distance. So the poet or the speaker even gives us an example of how he would convey his grief if he was to do it through verses. We have imageries like shattered night and shivering blue star, which suggest his lost love and how it is reflected in nature. The stars, which are at a distance, and the night time enhances the gloomy atmosphere that permeates throughout the poem. All these imageries also indicate the poet's melancholic mood. So the very first lines indicate the kind of mood that shall permeate throughout the poem. Let's continue reading the poem. The night wind revolves in the sky and sings. So this particular line adds to the nature imagery, and you find that wind is being personified here. The night wind revolves in the sky and sings. So that's an example for personification. Tonight I can write the saddest lines. I loved her and sometimes she loved me too. So Neruda repeats the first line here in the fifth and follows it with a statement on the love he shared with his beloved. He declares that he loved her and also states that she loved him too, but sometimes. Perhaps it indicates the kind of inconsistency with which she loved him. Or probably it could be indicative of the reasons why the relationship ended. I loved her, and sometimes she loved me too. Through nights like this one, I held her in my arms. I kissed her again and again under the endless sky. So Neruda switches to the past in these lines and talks about the times they used to spend together. I had earlier said that Neruda does this throughout this poem. He switches between past and present. So as of now, Neruda is going to narrate to us some events of the past. And he recalls, or this particular shift to the past reveals the change that has taken place. And you find that it again reinforces the present predicament of the speaker. The words in this particular verse indicate the sensual nature of the relationship. He says, I kissed her again and again under the endless sky. So the sensuous relationship that shared is being, revealed here. And the endless sky could be a metaphor for what he thought that their relationship would be then, something which is endless. She loved me sometimes, and I loved her too. So the poet again reiterates the idea that he had about their love. He says, she loved me sometimes. This is something which he stated earlier. And he says, again, he declares, I loved her too. How could one not have loved her great still eyes? So the poet says, no, how could one not have loved her great still eyes? Now, he might be trying to ease himself by saying that she loved him sometimes, which is probably a kind of consolation for the poet. And also, he says anyone would have loved her. That's how beautiful she was, and that's how beautiful, to be precise, her eyes were. Tonight I can write the saddest lines. To think that I do not have her, to feel that I have lost her. So, as of now, this particular line has become a refrain. Refrain is a line that repeats itself throughout a poem. And the refrain that you find in this particular poem is tonight I can write the saddest lines. So now it has attained the status of a refrain. And he says, to think that I do not have her, to feel that I have lost her. So we have switched back to the present, and the repetition or the refrain, it shows how deeply disturbed the speaker is and how he tries to maintain his emotional and mental balance. But unfortunately, he cannot escape from the pain of having lost her. To hear the immense night, still more immense without her. So we know that the speaker is lonely, and his loneliness intensifies with the immense night, now which becomes more immense without her. So he intensely feels the loneliness at present. And that's why probably he switches back to the past at times, recalling the good times that he had with her. And the verse falls to the soul like dew to the pasture. And the poet says that, but still he is able to replenish or refill his soul with verses just like dews does to the pasture. Pasture means a field covered with the grass. So just like dews refreshes a pasture, just like that, verses refreshes this particular person's memory in him. What does it matter that my love could not keep her? The night is shattered and she is not with me. The speaker kind of balances himself and says that what does it matter now that she is not with me? She left because his love could not bound her to him. The shattered night in this particular verse represents his shattered relationship. This is all. In the distance, someone is singing. In the distance, my soul is not satisfied that it has lost her. So the poet hears someone singing at a distance, and he repeats the word distance once again to emphasize that particular idea of distance. Again, to reinforce the concept or the state that he is in, or the particular or his loneliness that he experiences. He feels that his soul is not satisfied at the fact that he has lost her. Again, we find that he is trying to console himself, but at some points he contradicts himself when he say that he's not satisfied. Now, earlier he said that I have lost her. What does it matter? It's because my love could not bound her to me. And right now he says his soul is not satisfied because he has lost her. My sight searches for her as though to go to her. My heart looks for her and she is not with me. The poet established the truth that he has lost his beloved in the earlier lines. In these verses, he expresses his longing to reunite with her. He says, my sight searches for her as though to go to her. He wants to return to his beloved. His eyes and heart yearns for her, but unfortunately, she is not with the speaker, the poet. The same night, whitening the same trees, we of that time are no longer the same. The poet remembers that this night is so similar to the nights during which they spent time together. And he also understands that things are no longer the same in spite of the similarities. I no longer love her, that's certain, but how I loved her. My voice tried to find the wind to touch her hearing. The poet declares that he no longer loves her, and that is something which is certain for him. But he admits that he greatly loved her before. The poet again links their relationship to nature when he says that his voice tried to find the wind to touch her hearing or to touch her. Another's, she will be another's, like my kisses before. her void, her bright body, her infinite eyes. Now the poet faces the fact that she is someone else's, and he reiterates that another's. He understands that she belongs to someone else now, and he again, realizes or reiterates that statement. She will be another's. She will soon be someone else's. Like my kisses before, her void, her bright body, her infinite eyes. So her space, her body, her eyes, all will belong to someone else very soon. I no longer love her, that's certain, but maybe I love her. Love is so short, forgetting is so long. The poet reiterates that he no longer loves her, but immediately contradicts himself by saying that maybe, perhaps, I love her still, or he loves her still. He also adds a philosophical statement when he says that forgetting is what takes a long time, but life is short. So he might probably take all his life to forget her, but as far as the poet is concerned, life is very short. Because through nights like this one, I held her in my arms. My soul is not satisfied that it has lost her. The poet again switches to past and says that, or he speaks in the present and says that, since this particular night is so similar to the nights when he held her, he is not satisfied about the present because he has lost her. And finally, he concludes by saying that, though this be the last pain that she makes me suffer, and these the last verses that I write for her. So the poet concludes by stating that he is determined to erase the memory of her, as these are the last verses that he writes for her. So that's the end of the poem. You have a number of themes being explored here, like memory and reminiscence, love and passion, alienation and loneliness, etc. Thank you so much for being with me. I will see you in another video lesson.